Welcome, everyone. I'm Shah. Today, I'm going to talk about my content creation journey and give away all my secrets that I've learned over these past 4 years. This all started as really a way for me to structure my learning and improve my communication skills. But now content is the foundation of how I get customers today and what allows me to work for myself. So hopefully these lessons and things are helpful to people. Let's just start by the numbers because this is the kind of the most salient part of content creation. I make content mainly on 2 platforms, Medium and YouTube. Over the past 4 years, I've written 99 blogs, and actually the blog I'll write for this talk will be my 100th blog. And then I've made 88 YouTube videos over this time, gotten a little over 17,000 followers on Medium, a little over 50,000 subscribers on YouTube. Subscribers is one thing, but how many people are actually engaging with the posts? So about 25,000 people every month read my blogs. About 150,000 people watch my videos every month, which is actually kind of crazy. Doesn't really register, but that's what the analytics says. And then just lifetime earnings, about $17,000 on Medium, $10,000 on YouTube. But this isn't like the main way that I make money today, which we'll talk about in a second. But yeah, you see all these numbers, and maybe you heard about me originally through some of my content channels, but it didn't start out that way. This is me in October 2020. I was a second-year physics grad student. I'd never worked professionally in data science or AI. I was just a grad student doing research and teaching classes sometimes. I knew nothing about content creation. I had 0 followers on every platform, and I had never earned a single dollar online. I'd only earned money through a regular job, like most people. But 2 years later, I got my dream job at Toyota as a data scientist, then eventually quit that. And now today I work for myself and I do exactly what I want to do every single day, which to me is kind of worth more than, whatever 6-figure salary I was getting at Toyota. So this talk is all about how I started, my journey from 0 to 70,000 followers, how I used content to become self-employed, my content strategy today, and then how I'd start if I could do it all over. And it's always important to note, it's not a flex. There are a lot of people thinking about transitioning into entrepreneurship, or they have a business and they're trying to get more customers through content. The goal of this is just to share the hard-learned lessons and the mistakes that I've made so that you don't have to make those same mistakes yourself. Okay, so let's just go back to October 2020 and how I got started. So there were really 2 key principles that I had in mind when I posted my first piece of content. The first one was this idea that I call it a multi-kill, but it's basically this idea of a single action that results in multiple desired outcomes. And so in the context of content creation, this just means repurposing content. So I was a PhD student, so I had to write this very long dissertation. And so I was thinking to myself, okay, might as well just take sections of this dissertation and post them as blogs on Medium. And then I was thinking, okay, well, if I'm already going to make a blog about this, might as well just record myself talking over some slides about it. So really, that was one of the reasons why I started with content creation, is because I was like, oh, okay, it's only a marginal effort outside of the work I'm already doing. And I imagine there are a lot of people who are already doing work. Maybe you're not writing a dissertation. There are things that you're doing that you can easily repurpose into content. The other idea was this notion of I'm my audience. How I set this to myself back then was just make content for a past version of myself. For me 6 months ago. And this is what inspired, the very first posts that I made were all about the Fourier and wavelet transform. So the Fourier transform, we don't have to get into the details of that, but that is a very widely used technique in signal processing and beyond in mathematics and many other fields. And it's something that you learn many times in a typical physics undergrad program. But there was this other notion of a wavelet transform, which was always kind of scary and intimidating to me. But then when I finally cracked it and understood how this technique worked, it was this huge relief, and it resolved a major pain point. My first motivation for making that first piece of content was, okay, I want to make a write-up on the wavelet transform that would have helped that past version of Shah who was very scared and intimidated by it. So these 2 things actually, it's not only how I started, but I still use these 2 principles today in my content creation. And so I just want to give a brief overview of the journey, because it's easy to kind of look at people and see where they are now and not appreciate the journey that they went on to get here, because I've been making content for 4 years. And like many of you here, I was in the same spot as you guys in the audience, or even behind people in the audience. So I just want to like convey this point that you don't need to be some kind of like expert or like well-known figure to start making content. I posted my first blog and video in November of 2022. I was at UTD as a grad student. And so fast forward, what is that, like 8 months, 9 months later, that's when I made my very first dollar online. So it's just like, you're not going to start making content and immediately start making money. Like maybe you do if you're intentional about it, but I really didn't have much intention beyond, I've already written this stuff up in my dissertation. Let me just post content about it. So it's really just to kind of structure my learning, and there wasn't really a master plan involved with it. So I eventually made my first dollar. But then after I made my first dollar, this was on Medium through Medium's Partners program. Just a few months later, I had my first $100 month. And so this is like one of the upsides of content creation on Medium, is that very quickly you can start making some extra cash. And while $100 a month isn't going to pay the bills, it's not bad as like side income. Like $100 was that like a steak dinner every month. So it's not bad. So that kind of continued through May of 2022. And during this period, I was consistently making like $150 to $200 a month writing on Medium. And I feel like, you know, people who are writing on Medium now, who are watching this, or most people that I know who consistently write on Medium, maybe one blog a month, that was the cadence I was on. It's not ridiculous to just make a few $100s a month from it. And, you know, again, this isn't like pay the bills money, but it's, you know, not bad side income, extra cash. But then in May 2022, that's when I graduated and I got my dream job at Toyota, and I was working as a data scientist. So I finally had made it in life. So over the next, I guess, another 8 months or so, I was working, but I wasn't really like super focused on content. Like I'd post like maybe like one video and one blog a month, but it was just like a pretty low volume. And really most of this time, because I was, you know, trying to graduate and write a dissertation and do research, and then I was working full time, I don't have time to like write a blog or make a video every single week. Usually I would just post once a month. But then in December 2022, I hit 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. So this was a pretty big milestone. And so note that this is like 2 years after posting my first video, I hit 1,000 subs. So this can take a very long time. For other people, it happens faster, but this is how long it took for me. And then 6 months later is when I got monetized on YouTube. So notice that it didn't take me long to monetize on Medium, but it took me like 2.5 years to monetize on YouTube. But this July 2023 was actually a pretty big month for me, because it was also the month I quit my job, which wasn't like directly caused by me getting monetized. It was like a culmination of things. Like I was monetized, I had a year of runway, I'd been wanting to quit for a while to work for myself. And I felt like I was at a point where I could make money through freelancing and support myself on my own. This is when I'm working for myself. And during this time, my earnings jumped significantly. And I think this is partially because I could post more often. Like I could post at least one piece of content every single week, whether it was a blog or a video. But also now my earnings basically doubled because I was making money through Medium, and I was also making money through YouTube. So ever since I quit, I've been consistently making like $1,000 to $2,000 a month through content. Again, not like pay your bills money, but it's moving in the right direction. July 2024 is when I hit 10,000 subs, and then February 2025. So last month I hit 50,000 subs. So you can kind of see this exponential increase. So it took me forever, 2.5 years to hit 1,000 subs. But then another 2 years, or I guess another year and a half, I got to 10,000 subs. And then just another 8 months later, I hit 50,000 subs. And then today, you know, these are the same numbers as before: 17,000 followers on Medium, 53 on YouTube. But here's the essential thing, like, the mistake I made early on is like I put way too much weight to followers and subscribers. But the thing is, you can't eat followers. A very important part, if you're trying to actually generate money from content and make a living from it, you need to be able to convert eyeballs into earnings. And there are only two ways to do this. Number one is you sell other people's stuff. And so I was doing this through Medium's Partners program, because you can paywall your blogs, and that incentivizes people to pay Medium a monthly fee. So you're basically selling partners programs by doing the paywall. YouTube AdSense. So YouTube will place ads on your videos, which will sell people stuff. Like companies will advertise their stuff on YouTube. But you can also work directly with brands through sponsorships. So they'll pay you money to make a video about their product or just shout out their product in your video, or affiliate links. So you can link company products in your videos or your blogs, and they'll pay you something for every sale. I've done these first two. I've done one sponsorship and I didn't really like doing it, so I just never do it again. I've never done it again. It's just like too much of a headache and back and forth with people. So Media Partner Program and YouTube AdSense. The second way is to sell your own stuff. This could be paid calls. This could be selling consulting or freelance services. This could be making digital products. And digital products aren't just like ebooks or PDFs. Like you could also sell like dashboards or Google Sheets, templates. Like there's so many different things that could be a digital product. You could sell a course, which is very popular, or you could build a SaaS product and sell that. And so in my experience, just doing these first two, I'm only making like $1,000 to $2,000 a month, which is fine for like some kind of side hustle or something like that. But it's not really enough to pay bills and make a living. So really, my only option is sell your own stuff. I could do sponsorships and stuff, but I just didn't really enjoy it. So now I'm on to way number two. So the ways that I've done this, and I've actually done it many different ways, which I'll talk about later. But the main ways I've done this are through paid calls. And so I use Calendly, and people can book calls with me. And it's usually like clients, like small to medium-sized businesses trying to build AI products or features or something like that. And they'll like hop on for a consult. In the first year doing this full time, I made about $3,000 through paid calls. But again, like, $3,000 in 1 year, can't really pay your bills with that. Next is consulting contracts. So like actually working with clients on like longer term projects. So the way this would work is people would typically watch a video or read a blog. They'd book a free discovery call, and then hopefully we would close, but that usually didn't happen. Maybe like 5 or 10% close rate. And in the first year, I made about $6,000 through consulting contracts, which I could have probably made a lot if I wasn't spending so much time making content, but we can talk about like trying to balance consulting and content creation in the Q&A if you guys are interested. And then finally, like 6 months ago, I launched a course called the AI Builders Bootcamp on a platform called Maven. And then in the first 6 months, this has made me like $27,000. So significantly more success on the bootcamp compared to these other things. And that's not to say you can't make big money with these other things. It's just that the course just worked a lot better for me. And I think it's just because of my skill set and the types of things I enjoy. It's more aligned with this than kind of, being like work for hire, kind of building things for other people. Let's see. And yeah, I'll just shout out this blog. So if you guys are curious about all the ways I made money in my first year, I actually have a whole article about it on the Data Entrepreneurs Medium publication. So I think I got like 2 more slides and then we can do Q&A. This is like my current strategy of like how I make content. So this is the workflow of how I repurpose content. So typically ideas will start on LinkedIn. So like I'm working on a series on AI agents. So I made a few posts on LinkedIn on agents to kind of test different ideas. Then the next step is I write a blog expanding on that idea to actually construct a narrative from it. Then I'll make a video based on that narrative from Medium. So this is like the core way. And then what I'll do is I'll take like Medium blogs and things I've said in YouTube videos, and then I'll kind of funnel that back into LinkedIn as posts where I'm promoting this content. And then I'll also look at my top posts from LinkedIn, and then I'll basically repost those in my newsletter. So I have a newsletter for my course called the AI Builders Newsletter. And I'll also kind of repurpose top LinkedIn posts as YouTube community posts. So not videos, but you can have text posts on YouTube as well. Finally, like the slides and the content I cover in YouTube typically gets repurposed and goes into content for the course. So this is like my workflow flywheel, like whatever you want to call it. And this seems to work for me. In principle, you could have any of these platforms go in any direction. Like you could start from Medium, or you could start from a newsletter or YouTube or whatever. And sometimes it's not exactly like this, but I find that having this like golden workflow, like this is the ideal way of doing it, helps give me more clarity and structure when it comes to content creation. But of course, like if you're starting now, you're not going to be posting on like 3 platforms, have a newsletter, and be promoting some kind of course or product or something like that. So seeing my strategy may not be super helpful. But if I were to start over, this is exactly what I would do. I would just start with that same principle of like make content for a past version of myself. So I'd start by asking like, okay, what platforms do I use most? It's a Medium, so YouTube, LinkedIn, X, Instagram, whatever. So I use YouTube most. I just consume a lot of like educational content, watch podcasts and interviews and things like that. So I'd probably like look at YouTube first, and then I would ask myself like, who was I in the past or who am I now? So I might say grad student, researcher, data scientist, freelancer, entrepreneur. And then I would ask another question, which is what problems did I have or what problems do I have now? And then I would just list all the problems and pain points. Like grad student, I can't get a job. I'm a researcher. I don't understand this complicated, esoteric research topic. Data scientist trying to do a side hustle. I don't know how to monetize my skills. Freelancer, I don't know how to get clients. As an entrepreneur, I don't know how to validate product ideas. So these are all pain points, and the list goes on and on and on. I find like the more real and the more salient the pain is for you, typically the better the content idea. That's just been my experience. The next question is like, how did I solve that, or how can I solve that problem now? And so these are just your content ideas. Sharing my $150,000 data science resume, the one that got me hired, doing an introduction to large language models, like how they work, how I monetize my data skills, 7 lead sources for data freelancers, build your first SaaS landing page to help you validate ideas. So there's just so many ideas that can just come from these pain points, and then just simply post one of these ideas on whatever platform you use most often. Not all of these platforms, just pick one. So I might post, okay, here's how I monetize my data skills, and I'll make a YouTube video about it. And then once you do that, because it sounds easy, but there's so many things that just hold people back, and so many reasons, so many good reasons you give yourself to not do that first post that you don't end up doing it. So just post once. And then once you do that, set a ridiculously easy cadence to keep it up. So if you're working full time, realistically, you might only be able to post one YouTube video a month or one YouTube video a quarter. If you're doing short form content, maybe that's like a higher cadence, like once a week or once every other week or something like that. But just like set a goal that is so ridiculously easy and then just stick to that. And be okay with sucking for a while, but that's just how you get better and better and better. But this is like slightly different. If I have an existing business, like an existing product or service that I'm trying to sell, then I wouldn't follow this framework because it's not going to have as high of ROI. Instead of asking like, who am I would basically ask, who is my customer? Where is my customer? What are their problems? How can I solve those problems? So for example, if my customers are investors, a lot of investors are on X, I'm going to list out their problems. Like maybe they have too many inbound pitches, like too many pitch decks. Their due diligence is too slow. It takes them too long to make decisions, investment decisions, and they're missing out on deals. They have poor visibility into portfolio metrics. Maybe their portfolio companies need AI support and they don't know where to start, or they don't know how to do that. And then just list out solutions. Like on X, like it's really popular to just like build some kind of simple tool and post a demo about it or something like that. So just like build and share a lead scoring tool for investors trying to go through pitch decks, do a post on how I use LLMs to accelerate due diligence, build a tool that like an AI tool that reads investor updates and kind of synthesizes the key points and red flags, and then have like a post like 10 ways startups can use AI today or something like that. And then just follow the same exact thing. Just post one of those ideas and then set a ridiculously easy cadence. Okay, so I've been rambling on for a long time. Thanks for listening. Thanks for joining, and happy to take any kind of questions you guys have about content creation or kind of transitioning from full-time to content, or trying to use content to kind of sell an existing product or service or something like that.
I have one question, like what tools do you use to create YouTube videos?
Yeah, so my whole stack is I make slides in Keynote, and then I will record the voiceovers using OBS, which is an open source free software. And then I'll take the videos and I'll edit them on iMovie, which is just like the default video editor for Mac. And then I use Canva to make assets and thumbnails. And that's basically it. So it's nothing crazy. And I just use my webcam for most of my videos.
Like in general, how long does it take for you to make one video?
About 10 hours. Yeah. Well, here's the thing. Also, my videos are typically like 20 to 30 minutes long. If you're making like 5 to 10 minute videos that are shorter, like it's probably going to be much faster. It's just that, my content is very educational. So I'm like giving like lectures basically on YouTube, which is kind of amazing how I've grown such a following doing that. But um, that's why it takes me so long. And here's the thing, like, don't worry about like how long it's going to take and what tools you're going to use. Like if you haven't posted any content before, just do that very first post. Like just focus on that goal and don't worry about all these other things, because all those other things will get sorted out on your way to that goal.
Thank you. Thanks. By the way, I watch all your videos. They are very
Uh,
helpful for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for watching.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. Great presentation. So for me, working at a company, the thing I value is consistent stream of income.
Yeah.
So, for you, what is that transition period like? Like from you're working at Toyota, and then like not all of a sudden not having that consistent income source.
Yeah.
Was that scary? Because like, for example, I have a sister who she's not in doing AI, but she's doing content creation, and
Mhm.
she had a podcast for like 3 or 4 years, and it's only gained like 100 or so followers in that time period. And I mean, she doesn't have that the pressure to make money because she has a spouse that makes income. But like as a single person, it's like really scary for me
Yeah.
to know that my income stream is going to be cut off and it's just completely dependent on me. Like
Yeah.
how does that transition work for you?
So I think you got to decide at the outset, like, how you want to make money. Do you want to make money selling other people's stuff or selling your own stuff? So I think that's going to be the key thing. And then that's going to determine the skills and the activities that you need to do in order to make money and make your income consistent. So for me, it was like in the first year, I think I made like $25,000. And so I wouldn't have survived if I didn't have savings. So I think the savings was a big part of it for me. And I think you need to go into it with the mindset of like, oh, I'm not going to make like any money for the first 2 years, like you're going to make some money. Most likely what it's going to be is you're going to work twice as hard to make like half your salary in those first 2 years. And the reason why that happens in my experience and just kind of like reflecting on it is because I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I didn't understand like why people gave other people money. Like, because my only understanding of, income was I get a job and my employer pays me money. But in the real world, the reason people give other people money is like you're solving a problem for them. Like you're making their life easier. Like you're providing value to them. Like they have something in their life that's so painful that they're like happy to give away their money to solve that problem. And just like reflect on your own buying decisions. Like when do you spend money? You know what I mean? And like what would motivate you to pay for some product or some service, like some SaaS product or some digital product, or some course or something like that. And then try to put yourself into like a customer's shoes. Like, okay, why would they give me money? Am I kind of doing that same level of like value creation and value exchange for them? Maybe I didn't answer the question too directly, but hopefully something in there was helpful.
For me, it's just that it's like jumping into the deep end of the pool kind of thing. Like, and I don't know how to swim, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah.
And a lot of times, like the hard part of entrepreneurship is more so like the emotional side of it, like the uncertainty. It's kind of like you kind of don't believe in yourself in a sense. And that's where I find just like listening to entrepreneur stories, like listening to like I listen to Shoe Dog on audiobook. So that's the founder of Nike. Listen to Elon Musk's biography and like other entrepreneur stories, or like watching interviews and podcasts with entrepreneurs, or just like consuming content from people who like Alex Hormozy, or other people who are entrepreneurs and they're doing it and they're talking about their hard times and how they overcome problems. Because a lot of times just kind of hearing those stories gives you this like peace of mind or this confidence, like, oh, okay, it's not this like crazy impossible task, like this person did it. And hearing those stories makes it like more human and more accessible. So that's another thing that's kind of helped me more emotionally on the journey. I believe the key is selecting what to create content about. I feel you need to strike a balance between something you like, are an expert in, and something is different, will engage the audience. Content creation is skyrocketing and find it hard to produce something that's not already out there 1,000 times. What would be your framework? So I would go back to this. I would go back to this framework here. So basically, like, ask, who am I? Like, you don't have to be an expert. You don't have to be an expert to be helpful. You just have to be 1 or 2 steps ahead of your audience. So like, if I'm making a video trying to help grad students get their first data science job, I don't need to be like a recruiter and like a head of HR or someone that's hired like hundreds of data scientists or like a data science hiring manager. Like, sure, that person would be able to make good content. But as someone who's kind of lived, as someone who was a grad student and then got a data science job, I can just talk about my personal experience. And that's going to be helpful to those people who are grad students who are trying to get that first data science job, for example. So I don't think you have to be an expert. I would just start with the like problems that you had, like a past version of yourself, because one, you understand the pain that that person is going through, and two, you have your real world experience that you can talk about, which no one can take away from you. Like, you can have an opinion about something and someone can disagree with you, but someone can't disagree with something you've lived, you know what I mean? Something you've actually gone through, and just say, and then like at the end of it, it's always like, well, this is just what I went through, and I'm just sharing it in case it's helpful for anyone. I'm not saying like this is what people should do or this is the best way to do it. I'm just saying that this is the way I did it, and this is the result I had, so I just wanted to share it. Maybe it's just like a subtle mindset shift of, you don't have to be a guru or an expert. Just being like 1 to 2 steps ahead of your audience is enough.
So, Sean, you mentioned primarily your monetizing channels as YouTube and Medium. How about LinkedIn? Does that not generate any revenue for you, or at least is it not a good medium for revenue generation?
Yeah, the thing about LinkedIn is that there's like no partners program on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn won't pay you to post content on their platform, but you can make money on LinkedIn through sponsorships and affiliate links. And actually, I know some creators who make some pretty good money by doing sponsored LinkedIn posts. So that's definitely a way you can make money on LinkedIn, like selling other people's stuff. And of course, you could sell all these things on LinkedIn. Like, you can sell anything, like your own stuff on LinkedIn. And actually, like for my AI course, a good portion of people come from LinkedIn, because I found that the LinkedIn audience and, like, let's say the YouTube audience are like pretty different. Like, I do the same polls on LinkedIn and YouTube, and I find that the LinkedIn audience has more of an appetite to actually buy things, while the YouTube audience doesn't really have that appetite, and they prefer just free stuff. So, you know, this is kind of another subtle difference, kind of like understanding who your audience is on the different platforms. But you can definitely make money through LinkedIn by selling your own stuff or by doing like sponsored posts.
Thank you, Sean. And I look forward to your AI bootcamp starting Monday. Yeah. Thank you.
Nice. Yeah, Johnny, go ahead.
I'll ask more questions if no one else has any. So I, as a person working at a company, I've been and wanting to go into like freelance work, I've been told many times by other people, like, you have to do it while you're working. Like, you basically do it on your spare time, like when you're not working 9 to 5, and then on weekends and nights, and then kind of proving out that concept before you jump full time into freelancing.
Yeah.
But I find that to be a catch-22, because it's like, well, I don't really have enough time to devote to that side hustle. So how do I know that that's going to generate the equivalent income when I actually quit my job?
So this is kind of, I was thinking about this earlier. This is kind of the dilemma of entrepreneurship, in that you make decisions and you see the world through your current understanding and skill set. But the thing is, like, you got to play not where the puck's at, but where the puck is going. Because even though you don't have that clarity right now, that's not to say Johnny in 6 months or 12 months of doing like just some freelance work on the side won't have that clarity as well. So for me personally, like, I started doing freelance work on Upwork around here. I want to say like 2020. I want to say like August 2021 is when I got my first client on Upwork. And I was working full time and I was writing a dissertation. Like I had a lot of stuff going on, but I found like a couple like small contracts. Like I would just do one contract at a time. One person wanted me to put together like some kind of deck on machine learning and how they can use it in their business. This other contract was a doctor trying to do some unsupervised clustering with this specific deep learning model to categorize different like medical records. And like these were things I could just do on the side. And after that experience, I had a lot more clarity and confidence on what it meant to be a freelancer or to kind of provide data science services outside of like a full-time job. And so that's what gave me the confidence in July 2023 to think like, okay, I'm not, because when I was working at Toyota, I didn't take any freelance clients at all. And I was just making a few $100s a month from content, but I still had the confidence that I knew if I needed to, I could go back on Upwork and I could get clients and I could pay my bills that way.
Yeah, like what is the best way to get our first client on Upwork?
So there's like two things here. So one, there's a skill and taste involved in picking the jobs you apply to, because the way Upwork works for people who aren't familiar is that companies post jobs and then freelancers apply to those jobs. Very similar to applying to a job, but it's basically on a much like smaller time scale because it's like a smaller gig. It's not like a full-time role. So the first skill is the skill of picking the right jobs that are aligned with your experience and you have a high probability of actually getting. And then the second skill is learning how to sell yourself through that proposal. And so I would just look at jobs that seem to align with my skills. And even better if they were like asking for a specific technique that I had made content about. So like some people would talk about independent component analysis or principal component analysis. And I had 2 videos on both of those topics. So I could say, like, I could just include that in the proposal. So that's kind of like some evidence that I know what I'm talking about and would typically increase the probability of at least getting an interview, not necessarily getting the job. And then the second thing, just learning how to write good proposals. And the great thing about Upwork is that since there's so many jobs, you can do a lot of iteration and trial and error. And especially now, you can just use like ChatGPT to write proposals for you. You could pass in the job description, and you can pass in like your experience or just like a quick blurb about you, and then just say like, hey, can you write me a short proposal based on my skills and optimized for this specific job posting or something like that. You can just like iterate on that kind of template, like that kind of like proposal template over multiple applications and just like see what seems to work and see what doesn't seem to work over time. But the most important thing is just like the volume. So I was applying to 2 jobs a week. And I did that for like a few weeks until I got a client. And then I stopped applying to jobs. And then I would do the client work. And then I would start applying to 2 jobs a week once that ended, until I got my next client.
Hi, Shaw. I have a question regarding your YouTube to blog website. This is a simple yet powerful website. So what was the clients or users' response towards this website? Because it don't have fancy UI, but still useful. And I think this type of tool is good for testing the market really quick. So what was the response?
Okay, so there are 2 main things. One, it's kind of hard to get people to use yet another tool or to even pay for another tool when you can get very similar results through ChatGPT or Notebook LLM or things like that. So that was one of the pieces of feedback. So like it seemed like the value of the kind of like the convenience of just like pasting in a YouTube link and getting a blog at the end of it wasn't enough to kind of take them out of, to kind of get them to adopt this new product and go away from the like Claude or whatever tools they're already using. And the second thing was the first draft that it generated didn't get the person close enough to where they wanted to go with the article to be helpful. So there's like just like ideas there. So this is like the whole thing about like product, like your first MVP, like with the first product you put out there is going to suck, but it's only the only thing that keeps it sucking is that you don't iterate on it. So that's what makes products good. Like you got to do like, maybe like 7 iterations until you have something good. But those are the 2 pieces of feedback. Like it's hard to compete with existing tools, and just, you got to improve the output quality of the blogs. I am currently starting on my journey in data science. How would you do it if you were starting today? How can you work as a data science freelancer? And if you want to build a company from this service, how would you do it? And which roadmap would you follow? So it depends on like where you're at now. So I'll give like a few different examples. Like if I was in school, I would basically do the same thing that I did. Is in my first 6 months of grad school, I was just like, I was just taking classes. So I wasn't doing any data science work. I wasn't working with machine learning or anything like that. But what allowed me to get a lot of practical real world experience is I joined a research group. And in my experience, it's much easier to join a research group at your university than it is to get an internship. And the reason I say that is like, even when I was part of the research group and I was doing research and I was a teaching assistant, I still struggle to get internships. I remember applying to Capital One, and they had a very long and extensive application process, and I didn't get it, and they gave me no feedback, which was hilarious. But I feel like that's a really underrated way to kind of get into data science, is by, if you're at a university, joining a research group. I think the next best way is to like find an internship. I guess that also requires you to be a student. The most important thing is to just like do real projects. So if you're really starting from zero, like, and you don't know how to code or anything like that, like learn how to code, like first and foremost. If you're coming from a background like computer science, where you know how to code, but you don't necessarily know some of the more statistical things about data science, might be easy to just like join one of those like boot camps or do one of these like master's programs or something. To kind of allow you to get those skills. But once you get those skills, that's still not enough. Like you got to do real world projects, because a lot of times you'll learn more from like one real world project than like 10 like toy projects that you build as part of like a boot camp or a master's program. So I wouldn't worry about like the freelance stuff or building a company until like you first develop those fundamental skills. Like first learn how to do the work, and then start thinking about doing the freelance work and stuff. So I feel like once you have the skills, but you don't want to work at a company, you can start just like applying to jobs on Upwork. And the barrier to entry on Upwork is much lower than a company, because they're usually smaller. They're usually like small businesses or mid-sized businesses, and the projects are like on a shorter time scale or like more specific. So it's easier to get someone to take a bet on you on Upwork than to get someone to take a bet on you for a full-time role. Yeah, Johnny, go ahead.
I'm going to ask one last question. Speaking of going back to consistent stream of income, for your customers or clients, do you feel like you have to constantly find new customers or students or clients, or do you get a lot of like repeat customers?
Yeah, it's a really good question. That's one of the things I'm kind of sorting through now, because like one, I have the main way I make money now is through my AI course. So it's like once someone takes the course once, I don't know how much they'd want to take the course again, so that's one aspect of it. So a lot of it is like constantly getting new customers, but with the 150,000 eyeballs I get every month to my YouTube channel, like that's a huge like I just need to capture like 1% of that, and I have 150 people in my course, which would be like crazy income. So I mean, even if I capture like a third of that, like a third of 1% of that, like that would be like amazing. So that's if you're selling like one-time purchase thing, like a course. If you have like a subscription model where you just got to get the customer once, then you got to start thinking about churn and try to keep people from churning. But I find like for most people, like especially like with your background, like you're working at a company and you want to transition to freelance, the way they get clients is through referrals. And a lot of times, if you just do really good work, high quality work, and people like working with you, it's a very high chance that they're going to refer you to their friends and other business owners. And most freelancers I know survive strictly from referrals. They don't do outreach. They don't do cold outreach. They don't make content. They can survive strictly from referrals. And a big part of that is because they're just like a solo shop. They don't need a ton of work. And so they can typically survive with just like 1 to 3 clients at a time. And usually if you do a good job, you can get a lot of referrals.
Yeah, thanks. I think that's a good point. Is you have that big pool of potential clients from your content, so that's a great way to funnel.
But then funneling it is like a different skill set altogether. Now you gotta like think like a marketer. So there's like a whole new learning curve that I'm on now, and I think that's like another big learning. Like as a technical person, I imagine a lot of people here, what we're used to, what we've been used to, is that more technical skills means progress. So like how I become a more and more like a better and better data scientist, how I kind of climb the ranks at a company is I need to get more and more skilled at, building these tools, shipping models and understanding cloud and containers and orchestration and pipelines and things like that. Like getting more and more technical is the path to success. But as an entrepreneur, it's usually not. Like you'll get more return on your investment instead of like trying to go from like the top 10% of data scientists to the top 5%. Going from like the bottom 50% of marketers or salespeople to just like mediocre to like the 50th percentile will give you the most return on your investment. So like don't ignore the non-technical skills because they'll typically give you more ROI. While taking paid calls, people from different industry get advice solving their specific domain problem. How to adapt your expertise with other domains with being confident with senior professional domain expert. So I think that's like one of the things that's like a double-edged sword in data science and AI is that it's like horizontally applicable. Like you could use the same approach, the same framework, the same problem-solving technique to solve a wide range of problems across many different industries, which is great because like you can basically take any client, but it's also bad because like you can't really get enough expertise in a specific domain. Like you basically have to learn about each domain from scratch and all that kind of stuff. So I think this is where it kind of goes back to the non-technical skills. You need to just get really good at asking questions and like being curious and being able to pick up a new industry in a relatively short period of time. Of course, you're not going to become an expert in like a call or a couple weeks worth of calls, but you can understand enough where you can propose valuable solutions. So that's going to be more of like a non-technical skill set, but it's like essential if you're trying to do consulting on your own. How do you approach striking a balance between niching down and keeping your content more general? So at first, the goal is to post because you've never done it before and there's so much uncertainty and there's so many skills you have to learn. So I wouldn't worry about like niching or anything like that. Just I feel like if you're starting from zero, like you don't have a business, just post content for a past version of yourself, and that's niche enough, even if you have a broad range of interests like me. But eventually, you're gonna want to niche down most likely, and that's the path I'm on now. I feel like my content is quite broad, and that's gotten me like a pretty big audience. But there's this tension of like, you have a big audience, but you can't really monetize everyone because typically when you're monetizing, like when you're selling something, you're selling a specific product which is designed or made for a specific customer avatar. So right now I'm in the process of trying to niche down my content to kind of be more aligned with the types of people taking the course. So this is like entrepreneurs, freelancers, people trying to build AI products for themselves or for their clients or something like that. This is like more advanced, like this is down the line. So if you're just getting started, you don't have to worry about this. But again, there's like a tension of like, do I want to be like an artist or do I want to be an entrepreneur? And it's like two different mindsets because like the artist, like you're just trying to express yourself. You're trying to convey some idea or message through your content. But as an entrepreneur, you're trying to sell a product or a service. And so of course, like I feel like I'm a bit of both, and I'm trying to move more toward being an entrepreneur with my content. But there is some kind of tension. I guess the magic is when you can be an artist and be creative while being an entrepreneur at the same time. And I feel like that's kind of what I'm figuring out now. But I wouldn't worry about all the stuff at the beginning. Just like if you haven't posted before, just post once and then find a cadence. Like don't worry about strategy or anything like that. Do the mechanical stuff of just, okay, let me make the video and let me post it. Let me write the blog and let me post it. That's the most important thing you need to develop at the beginning. All right, guys. Well, if there are no other questions, we can wrap it up. Thanks for joining on a Saturday morning or Saturday evening, wherever you are. Let's see. I think we got an event next week with Rod. He has a ton of experience in technical sales, and he's going to talk about the art of pitching for data entrepreneurs. So if you're trying to develop those non-technical skills, learn how to sell something, that workshop might be helpful to you. So right after this talk, you'll get an email with the events calendar so you can register for that event if you're interested. Other than that, thanks for joining. If you guys have any other questions, feel free to shoot me a message on LinkedIn. Happy to answer anything else. And yeah, we'll see you in the next one. Take care.